We're going to be taking notes on order of operations. You should be on slide 6 of your notebook. What are order of operations? They are rules that dictate the steps in evaluating an expression. And you may want to highlight that and make the font a little bit bigger. And we remember the order of operations by using GEMDAS. You may have learned it as PEMDAS, but G is preferable. So G stands for grouping symbols. And with grouping symbols, we work from the inside out. And if you want to format this in a slightly different way, that's up to you as long as you have the correct information. And some examples of grouping symbols are parentheses, square brackets, we have absolute value symbols, which you can get by hitting the key above the enter button on your keyboard, and fraction bars. Which I'll use a slash for that. And can't really type this symbol on our keyboard, but a square root and also a cube root would also be examples of grouping symbols. E stands for exponents. And then M and D. So M and D is multiplication and division, and you'll notice there's an arrow here. So it's very important that we understand that multiplication does not come before division. We do multiplication and division from left to right. So if a division is in front of multiplication, you would do the division first. So multiplication and division go from left to right. And then addition, subtraction, same thing. Still go from left to right. And I am going to go ahead and make these a little bit bigger so I can read them. And if you want to mess around with fonts or anything, that's fine too. Okay, looks good. Let's go on to the next slide. So you'll notice on this slide we have purple boxes that say insert picture of work here. So anytime you see a purple box, you're going to need to do these problems on a piece of paper and then take a picture and upload them into this document. So as I've said before, I recommend that you keep either a notebook or a binder of your scratch paper so you keep it organized and don't just have paper all over the place with random math problems on it. So at this time, go ahead and get some paper to do these problems and come back when you're ready. Okay, so I have my scratch paper here, and the first thing I'm going to do is just write down the problem exactly as it's written. So question 1, I have the absolute value of -11 minus the absolute value of -5 equals something. Okay, let's go ahead and evaluate this. So first, grouping symbols. I have two different absolute values. Those are grouping symbols. So the first thing you have to do is evaluate those absolute values. So the absolute value of 11 is 11 minus What's the absolute value of negative 5? Just 5. And then all I have left is 11 minus 5, which is 6. So that's my answer. Okay, next I'll go ahead and do problem 2. I'm going to get a newspaper. So question 2, again, I write it down first. The square root of 9 minus 2, parentheses, 3 plus 7, close parentheses, equals. Okay, I do my grouping symbols. So there are 2 grouping symbols here. I see a square root, which is a grouping symbol, and I see that I have in parentheses 3 plus 7. So I'm going to go ahead and evaluate both of those grouping symbols. What is the square root of 9? That would be 3. Minus, I'm going to keep that 2 here, and I'm going to evaluate that parenthesis. So 3 plus 7 is 10. Next, I see what I have left, and I have technically still parentheses, but I've already simplified what's inside them. I have a 2 next to a set of parentheses. Anytime there's no symbol, that's multiplication. So I have multiplication here and subtraction here. Well, multiplication comes first, so that's my next step. 2 times 10 is a 20, so 3 minus 20. And then 3 minus 20 is going to equal a negative 17. Okay, let's move on to question 3. Question 3 is a little bit more complicated. I'm going to go ahead and write that down. I've got a parenthesis, 7 minus 2 squared plus 17, all divided by a negative 14 plus 2 times 5. All right, a lot more going on in this problem. So again, I've got some parentheses up here with some different things happening. So I do need to evaluate these parentheses, but I want to start with what's first. So I have a subtraction and I have an exponent. Well, exponents come before subtraction, so that's what I'm going to do first. So I have parenthesis 7 minus 4, close parenthesis, plus 17 over a negative 14 plus 2 parenthesis 5. So again, that's 2 times 5. Okay, next, I'm going to continue this parenthesis by evaluating the 7 minus 4, which is 3, plus 17, all divided by. Now, remember, a fraction is also a grouping symbol, so you can imagine that there are big parentheses in the top and parentheses in the bottom as well. So while I'm doing the numerator, the denominator is its own separate piece, and so I'm going to go ahead and start that by doing the multiplication, 2 times 5. So now I have negative 14 plus 10. I'm going to evaluate both the numerator and the denominator here. So 3 plus 17 is 20. And then negative 14 plus 10 would be a negative 4. And now that I've simplified the numerator and denominator as much as possible, now I can look at simplifying this fraction or dividing. 20 divided by negative 4 is going to equal negative 5. And we've got one more problem. Question 4 is negative absolute value of negative 9 minus 10 and the absolute value plus 12 squared divided by 6 times 3. Okay, so I see that I have absolute values here. Those are again a grouping symbol, so I want to make sure to evaluate those. So negative 9 minus 10, that is going to be a negative 19. So I will keep that negative out here. Absolute value of negative 19 and rewrite the rest of it. Now I can take the absolute value of negative 19, which would be positive 19, keeping the negative that was already outside. Next, I'm done with grouping symbols, so I do the exponent. Negative 19 plus 144 divided by 6 times 3. So I've got plus, divide, and multiply. So again, multiplication and division are in the same step, but we go left to right. So since division comes first, that's what happens first. So I'm going to do 144 divided by 6, which is 24. Now I can do the multiplication. So 24 times 3 is 72. And then last, negative 19 plus 72, which is the same as 72 minus 19, is 53. Since this is the first time we're inserting a picture of our work into our notebook, I'm going to walk you through it. So there's a couple different ways we can do this. You can go to Insert and Image and go directly to your camera, and that way you can just hold it up to your webcam and take a picture that way. And you can get to the same menu by going to Insert Image and again, Camera. If you would rather use a cell phone or a digital camera to take the pictures, that's fine. In that case, you need to send it to yourself, probably by sending it to your school email, and save it on your drive so that you can access the picture that way. If you're going to do the camera button, we click that, and because I'm recording this video, it doesn't work for me, but it should work for you. Just make sure you click Allow. You'll take a picture with this button and then insert it into this document. Do make sure that it is legible. If we can't read your work, we can't give you credit for it. If you need to go back and take a new picture, please do so. Once you've inserted all your pictures, you are done.